Hold on before you grab that can of spray, before you light one more candle that smells nice but barely does anything, and before you write off your patio for another entire summer. What I'm about to walk you through is going to change the way you look at your yard forever. Mosquitoes aren't just an itchy nuisance. They're one of the most dangerous animals on the planet, responsible for spreading illnesses like malaria, dengue, West Nile virus, and Zika to millions of people every single year. And most of us are still defending ourselves with nothing more than a scented candle and a bit of hope. That changes today. I'm walking you through 15 plants that mosquitoes genuinely cannot stand, and exactly how to use each one so it actually works in your specific space, not just in theory. If you find this useful, go ahead and subscribe now, because you're going to want everything that's coming. Let's turn your yard into a place mosquitoes want nothing to do with. Plant 1, lavender. We'll start with the plant nobody expects to see on a list like this, because lavender feels far too soft and spa-like to double as a defense mechanism. But the compound that gives lavender its calming smell, linalool, is exactly the thing that jams a mosquito's sense of smell. It can't find you if it can't smell you, and that's the whole game. Lavender grows best in USDA zones 5 through 8, with certain varieties tolerating warmer zones 9 and even 10 if the soil drains well and the plant gets full sun all day. The single biggest way people accidentally kill their lavender is by loving it too much with the watering can. This plant wants to stay dry between waterings, almost neglected. Planted along walkways, near seating areas, and directly under windows, anywhere people or a passing breeze will brush against it and push those oils out into the air. Snip a few fresh stems and set them in a small jar on your outdoor table too. It looks beautiful sitting there. It fills the space with scent immediately, and it's quietly doing its job the entire time your guests are admiring it. Plant 2, Citronella grass. Everyone knows the name from candles, but the actual living plant, Cymbopogon nardus, operates on an entirely different level. This tall, dramatic ornamental grass can reach 4 to 6 feet tall and is the raw, unprocessed source of the oil used in every citronella product you've ever bought at the store. The difference is that a living plant releases its oils constantly, especially when the leaves are brushed, bruised, or simply warmed by direct sun on a hot afternoon. Crush a leaf between your fingers and rub it directly on your skin before you head outdoors for an instant, natural layer of protection that costs you nothing. It thrives as a true perennial in zones 9 through 11, and if you're somewhere colder, grow it in a large container you can drag inside before the first frost hits. Cluster several plants together along the edge of your property instead of scattering them individually. The goal is a continuous scent wall, not isolated pockets, so plant generously and let the clumps grow into each other over a season or two. Plant 3, catnip. Stay with me on this one, because the science behind it is genuinely surprising. Researchers studying N-petalactone, the active compound in catnip, found it dramatically more effective at deterring mosquitoes than DEET, the chemical the military and most commercial repellents have relied on for decades. That result raised eyebrows even among the scientists running the study, and it's still cited constantly in natural pest control circles. Catnip won't work rubbed straight onto your skin the way DEET does, so don't expect it to function as a topical spray substitute. But as a plant filling your garden with that compound and the surrounding air, it's remarkably effective at keeping the general area clear. It grows happily in zones 3 through 9, tolerates neglect, poor soil, and partial shade without complaint, and asks almost nothing of you once it's established in a spot it likes. Grow it in a pot, though, because in open ground, it spreads through underground runners with real determination, the same way mint does. And fair warning, if you have neighborhood cats wandering through, prepare for them to find your yard absolutely irresistible. Plant 4, rosemary. Rosemary earns its spot in any garden purely on looks, flavor, and structure, but it also happens to be something mosquitoes genuinely despise being around. Its sharp, piney scent comes from a blend of camphor, cineole, and pinene, compounds that evaporate easily into the air and saturate the surrounding space even without anyone actually touching the plant. That constant low-level chemical presence overwhelms a mosquito's extremely sensitive smell receptors, and it never really gets used to it. Rosemary does best in zones 7 through 10 as a woody perennial shrub, and hardier cultivars can survive into zone 6 with a bit of winter protection, like mulch or a covered spot near a wall. It wants full sun and soil that drains quickly, so raised beds or containers work well if your native soil holds too much moisture. Here's a trick worth trying at your next gathering. Toss a few dried sprigs directly onto your fire pit or fireplace. As it burns, the smoke carries those oils outward across your seating area, smells incredible like a gourmet wood fire, and quietly clears the air of mosquitoes while everyone's distracted by how good it smells. Plant 5. Basil. Most repellent plants need to be crushed or disturbed to release their oils into the air. Basil just does it continuously and passively, which makes it one of the lowest effort, highest payoff options on this entire list. Compounds like astragal and eugenol found in its leaves are well-documented natural insect deterrents, and some research suggests basil oil can actually be plant harmful to mosquito larvae, meaning it may help reduce the next generation before eggs even hatch near standing water. Basil is a heat-loving annual almost everywhere, only becoming a true perennial in zones 10 through 12. It hates cold air with a passion, so resist the urge to rush it outdoors in early spring. Even a light frost will finish it off overnight. Keep several pots positioned near every seating area, doorway, and windowsill, where a breeze might carry the scent indoors on a warm evening. Lemon basil and holy basil, also known as tulsi, carry an especially strong, sharp scent and have been used as insect deterrents across Southeast Asia for generations. Plus, you get fresh basil for cooking all summer long. Pesto, salads, sauces, which is never a bad trade for a plant that's also protecting you. Plant 6. Lemon balm. Lemon balm smells like a lemon candy grown straight out of the ground, bright and citrusy, and mosquitoes want absolutely nothing to do with it. It's a member of the mint family, so it shares that family's strong aromatic oils, along with that family's habit of taking over far more real estate than you originally planned to give it. The compound citronella is behind both its pleasant scent and its effectiveness as a deterrent. Crush a handful of leaves between your palms and rub lightly on exposed skin for a quick, gentle, completely natural repellent before you step outside for the evening. It's cold-hardy from zones 3 through 7 and tolerates partial shade noticeably better than most plants on this list, making it a strong choice for shadier corners of the yard where sun lovers tend to struggle. Keep it contained in a large pot rather than the open ground, because left to its own devices, it will spread aggressively by underground runners and self-seeding until it's claimed an entire bed. The leaves also brew into a genuinely calming herbal tea, so it's doing double duty long after mosquito season ends. Quick pause here before we keep going, because we're right at the halfway point. If you're finding this useful so far, take a second and hit that like button and subscribe, because it genuinely helps this kind of practical, science-backed gardening content reach more people fighting the exact same backyard battle you are. It costs you nothing, and it means a lot on this end. Now, let's get into the second half of this list, including a plant near the end that doesn't just repel mosquitoes, it actively hunts them down.
Plant 7. Marigolds. If you want the cheapest, most foolproof plant on this entire list, it's marigolds, hands down. A 6-pack costs almost nothing at any garden center in the country, and they carry high levels of pyrethrum, a compound so effective it's the active ingredient in a huge range of commercial pest control products, everything from flea treatments to garden sprays to lice shampoo. Marigolds grow as annuals from zones 2 through 11, love full sun, tolerate drought without sulking, and bloom non-stop from late spring straight through the first hard frost if you deadhead the spent flowers regularly. Line them densely along garden beds, patio edges, and walkways rather than spacing them out for a formal look, since a tighter planting means a stronger protective effect. As a bonus, they also discourage aphids, whiteflies, and cabbage worms, and most deer tend to leave them alone entirely, so you're getting several problems solved for the price of one cheerful little flower. Plant 8. Peppermint. That sharp, cool, almost electric scent of peppermint is refreshing to us and completely intolerable to mosquitoes trying to navigate by smell. The menthol and menthone compounds inside it overwhelm their sensory receptors to the point where they simply avoid the area altogether. Peppermint is cold-hardy from zones 3 through 8, tolerates partial shade well, loves consistent moisture, and grows with almost no encouragement from you once it's settled in. If a mosquito does slip past your defenses and bites you anyway, crushing a fresh leaf and rubbing it directly on the bite calms the itch and reduces the swelling almost immediately. So this plant genuinely covers both offense and defense in one package. Grow it in containers without exception, and I mean that as seriously as anything else on this list. Peppermint spreads through underground roots aggressively enough to take over an entire garden bed and creep under edging into your lawn if you let it. In pots clustered near your grill or back door, though, it stays completely under control, looks lush, and keeps working around the clock. One more quick reminder while we're here. If a specific plant on this list sounds perfect for your yard, drop a comment telling me which one, because I genuinely read through all of them, and it helps me plan future videos around what you're actually dealing with. All right, let's finish this list. Plant 9, scented geraniums. You may have seen these labeled as mosquito plants at the garden center, and while that's a bit of a marketing oversimplification, it's honestly not far off the mark. Lemon-scented geraniums, botanically Pelargonium citrusum, contain high levels of citronella and geraniol, both well documented in research for their genuine repellent properties against biting insects. These plants are perennial in zones 10 and 11 and grown as annuals or container plants pretty much everywhere else in the country. They prefer full sun, moderate watering, and actually produce more fragrant oils when slightly stressed by drier conditions, so a little benign neglect works in your favor rather than against it. Line pathways with them or hang them in baskets near seating areas, anywhere people will naturally brush the finely textured foliage as they walk past. They're also just gorgeous plants on their own, with lacy, deep green leaves and delicate blooms in pink, lavender, and white that look at home in both a formal garden and a relaxed cottage-style planting. Lemon eucalyptus. This is the only plant-based repellent the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has specifically recognized as an effective alternative to DEET, and that single endorsement tells you everything you need to know about how seriously to take it. As a living plant simply filling the air around your yard, it still creates a genuinely unwelcoming environment for mosquitoes trying to move through the space. Most eucalyptus varieties suit zones 8 through 11, though a handful of hardier types can survive into zone 7 with some winter protection against hard freezes. Standard trees grow enormous, well over 50 feet, but dwarf and container varieties keep things completely manageable on a patio or small yard. Cut a few branches and place them in vases on your outdoor dining table, or drape them casually over a fence near your seating area. They dry beautifully too, holding on to much of their scent and oil for weeks afterwards. Plant 11, sage. Cultures around the world have burned sage for centuries in ceremonies and rituals, and underneath all of that tradition, there's a very practical, earthy reason. The smoke genuinely drives away insects. Sage, compounds like camphor, cinnamon, and thujone make it a strong natural deterrent both in its fresh growing form and especially once it's burned and turned to smoke. Garden sage is hardy in zones 4 through 8, wants full sun and even somewhat poor soil, and actually grows more aromatic and more potent during hot and dry stretches of summer, which happens to be exactly when mosquitoes are at their absolute worst. Grow it for its striking spikes of purple and blue flowers that pollinators love to visiting. Harvest it steadily through the season for cooking and keep a bundle drying somewhere in your outdoor space. Toss generous handfuls onto your fire pit during evening gatherings, and the smoke it produces smells rich, herbal, and warm, clearing a seating area of mosquitoes faster than almost anything else on this entire list. Plant 12, pennyroyal. People have relied on pennyroyal as an insect deterrent since ancient Rome and Greece, thanks to its high concentration of pelargone, a compound that's genuinely toxic to insects like mosquitoes, fleas, and ticks on contact. It grows low to the ground and spreads into a fragrant, creeping ground cover, working especially well tucked between stepping stones, where regular foot traffic crushes the leaves and releases those protective oils constantly with every step. It's hardy in zones 6 through 9 and handles partial shade reasonably well, useful in spots where sunnier plants on this list might struggle. One important safety note worth repeating clearly: pennyroyal is toxic if ingested in any real quantity, and the concentrated essential oil should never be applied directly to skin under any circumstances. As a garden plant you simply walk past and occasionally brush against, it's safe and quietly effective, but keep it well away from areas where small children or curious pets are likely to be chewing on things. Plant 13, ornamental allium. Those tall, elegant stems topped with perfectly round purple or white flower globes aren't just striking to look at in a border, they're quietly working the entire time they're in bloom. Alliums, along with their edible cousins like garlic, onions, and chives, produce sulfur-based compounds that insects find genuinely repulsive to be near. Most ornamental varieties are planted as bulbs in fall for spring and early summer blooms, and they're reliably hardy in zones 4 through 9, depending on the specific variety you choose. They need full sun and soil that drains well, since bulbs sitting in soggy conditions will simply rot before they ever get the chance to bloom. Cluster them generously through your borders, where they'll rise up among your other perennials, adding real visual drama above ground while doing quiet protective work below the surface. They're also completely deer-resistant and tend to naturalize, multiplying on their own over the years without any real effort from you. Plant 14. Bee balm. Bee balm, botanically monarda, might be the most wildlife-friendly plant on this entire list. Hummingbirds seek it out specifically, native bees depend on it, and butterflies visit it constantly throughout the season, meaning it supports far more pollinators than most ornamental garden plants ever will. At the same time, its active compound, thymol, the same ingredient found in many mouthwashes and antiseptic lozenges, is something mosquitoes strongly avoid being anywhere near. That combination is essentially unbeatable in a garden setting, since you're supporting the ecosystem and undermining the one insect you actually want gone, all with a single plant. Bee balm is hardy in zones 3 through 9, prefers full sun to partial shade, and rewards you with massive, shaggy, vividly colored blooms in red, pink, purple, and white from midsummer into early fall, right at the peak of mosquito season. Watch for powdery mildew in humid climates and choose resistant varieties if that's a concern where you garden. Planted in generous drifts near your seeding area, it quickly becomes one of the most visited and admired plants in your entire yard. Pitcher plants. Every plant so far on this list repels mosquitoes by making the air unpleasant. This one hunts them down directly. Pitcher plants, mainly Sarracenia, species native to North America, form tall, tube-shaped leaves that lure insects in with nectar and scent, then trap them permanently using downward-pointing hairs and a slick interior surface they simply can't climb back out of. It's nature working exactly as evolution designed it to, and watching it happen in your own backyard is genuinely fascinating for guests of any age. Many Sarracenia are surprisingly cold-hardy, thriving as reliable perennials in zones 5 through 9, native to bogs and wetlands across the eastern United States. They need consistently moist, acidic soil and should only ever be watered with rainwater or distilled water, since tap water's minerals will slowly kill them over a season or two. If you've got a low, perpetually damp corner of your property that's never been good for growing anything else, that's your perfect spot to build a small bog garden of these. They're also a guaranteed conversation starter at any backyard gathering, since nothing quite breaks the ice like showing someone a plant that eats mosquitoes for a living. Putting it all together. Now that you've got all 15, here's how to actually lay them out for real protection instead of scattering them randomly. Picture your yard in 3 layers: the outer edge, the middle ground, and the space right around where you actually sit and relax. Along the outer edge, use your larger, more structural plants, Citronella grass as a screen, eucalyptus if your climate supports it, and generous drifts of allium or bee balm woven through your borders. These create the first barrier mosquitoes encounter before they ever get to your living space. In the middle ground, fill in with your reliable perennials like sage, rosemary, lavender, and marigolds, planted in dense, uninterrupted rows along paths so there's no gap or scent-neutral corridor mosquitoes can slip through unnoticed. Right around your seating area, patio, and doorways, this is where your containers go: basil, peppermint, lemon balm, catnip, and scented geraniums, the plants you'll actually brush against while you're outside enjoying your evening.
And when you light the fire pit, toss on some rosemary or sage and let the smoke carry that protection out over the whole group. The final piece is just as important as the plants themselves, and skipping it undoes a lot of this work. Get rid of standing water anywhere on your property. Mosquitoes can breed in as little as a bottle cap's worth of still water sitting undisturbed. Empty saucers under your pots after it rains, clear out clogged gutters, flip over unused buckets and wheelbarrows, and keep bird baths fresh rather than stagnant. No amount of careful planting will fully protect you if you're providing a breeding ground just a few feet away from all that effort. Combine a layered mix of these 15 plants with eliminating standing water, and you will notice a real, measurable difference in how your yard feels by evening. You're not going to erase every mosquito on the planet, that's simply not realistic, but you can absolutely turn your yard into a place you actually want to sit in at dusk again without dreading it. That's a completely achievable goal, and now you've got everything you need to make it happen this season. If this was useful to you, drop a like and subscribe if you haven't yet, because I share practical, science-based gardening content just like this every single week. Let me know in the comments which plant you're trying first, or which one on this list surprised you the most. I read every comment that comes in. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.